The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
All right. Welcome, guys, to Saturday. It is the Habit-Based Lifestyle and Business Show. And for some of you, you may be listening to this live. Others, you may be listening to the recording. But I wanted to start doing a weekly review podcast on the lessons that I learned throughout 2022 and this week. And today I have the topic of leadership. And I think the lesson that I learned this week was so valuable and can have a major impact, I think, on many of you heading into 2022. But I really just want to share it from my perspective so that I can walk through and show you what I learned about myself inside of this first week of 2022. I think it's important that we take these lessons that we learn and we can leverage them going forward. Now, if we're not careful, we could have too big of an ego, or we could have we could just not think about them or stop it and write them down to the place where we can actually take something away. This week, the topic really came around leadership, and me and Caleb, one of the guys that works for me, he's worked for me longer than anybody else. He's 21 and acts like he's like 32, 33. But he's an amazing kid, amazing employee. I've had the opportunity to know him since he was 18. He was an intern when I first met him, and he was actually my intern. And we worked together for a little while, and then he continued to work for someone else I did. And then we got back together about a year and a half ago, and he's been working for me ever since. But one of the cool things that came up is we had kind of an important conversation this week about leading and leadership. And he brought up the point where, hey, I feel like I'm leading the team more than you are. And at first I would say that I didn't really get triggered, but I was kind of like, you know what, is that true in my mind? And as we kept talking about it, I said, yeah, dude, you're right. You have been stepping up as a leader more than me, and you've definitely been leading the team more than me. And one of the things that I got to do was step back and really in that moment say, man, I've been so focused on this other area that I haven't been leading, him and the other guys on the team. And it really got me to think about, hey, am I leading in my business? Now, in my mind, I'm driving the business forward, but in his mind, I'm leaving the people or the employees behind, and he's really looking to me for leadership. And so as we got to work through this, I really realized that, I use the analogy of, Home Alone. It's like, I know the destination we're going to, yet I'm out running, trying to get to this destination, and I'm leaving these guys home alone, or to kind of like figure it out on their own by themselves as a group. And it's like, he's trying to figure out how to navigate all this. And yet here I am running out ahead of everyone else, being like, hey, why aren't you guys coming with me? When I haven't actually sat down and said, listen, here's the destination we're going. Let's all get on the same page. and leading them to the place we're going. And so they kind of feel lost. And I think it's an important thing in business because we can, I'm kind of an internal thinker, so I can think of all these things in my mind, but if I don't relay them to the team, if I don't relay them, especially, to Caleb, then he feels lost along the way. And so, I think the important thing this week was really to take a step back and say, okay, listen, am I leading in my business? No. Okay. So how can I start showing up different, making sure that these guys, they know the vision, they know where we're going, and we all get on the same page, because it does no good for me to run out ahead and then have to slow down and come back and get them and then almost like rally them and then bring them with me, because that takes, 2 to 3 times more effort. It also slows us down in where we're going. And so then in a matter of a day or two, we're able to pivot, get back on track. But what I want you to know is this, like, listen, as a business owner, our responsibility is to lead the team or lead the people on our team. And if we're not doing that, then they feel left behind. They feel, kind of like they're operating alone, like Caleb did. And so as we got to talk through this, I got to course correct and get back on track. Now that's in week 1 of 2022. But I've done this where it was 3 months, 6 months, 9 months of doing that. And imagine how in disarray your team can be. And I've had this happen before where maybe it was, 3 months of doing it, or 6 months or 9 months. And all of a sudden now it's affecting your team. It's affecting how they show up. It's affecting your production, which means it's affecting your bottom line. For us and for me, inside of the first week of 2022, knowing that we could just correct this, get on the same page, move forward. It didn't have to get to 3 months to where it got so bad to where, the team was going to implode, or it didn't have to get to 6 months. Although it's probably been going on longer than a week, we're able to fix it in a week because, I'm able to sit back and take, the criticism and take the conversation and saying, yeah, dude, you're right. You know what? I'm going to admit I haven't been leading at the level that I need to, the level that I am called to lead you guys. And so I really got to step back in that. Now, the other thing is you start looking at, well, hey, where else is this showing up in my life? Am I leading at home at the level God has called me to lead? Am I leading as a father at the level that God has called me to lead? And those are all conversations that I begin to have, hey, where else is this going to show up in my life? Because chances are, if it's showing up in your business, it's showing up in other areas of life. And if you don't pay attention to that, then it's going to become rampant in your life. And I really believe that business is a mirror reflection of our entire life. Our life is a mirror reflection of our business. Like, they're not separate. They go together. Just because you think you don't have a problem at home, or no one's called you out maybe for not leading at home, doesn't mean you don't have a leadership problem. It means that you have to go home and look and say, hey, am I leading like God's called me to lead in my business, at home as a husband, at home as a father? Because chances are those things are going to show up. And so I got to go back through that and really look at areas of my life. Hey, I can see some areas with my kids that I could definitely step up and lead. I can see some areas with my marriage I could definitely step up and lead. And that really gives me the opportunity to do that. And, inside of 2022, or 2021, I could say at times it felt like my wife was probably leading more spiritually than I was in our home. Now, what that also allows me to do is to be able to step into that versus, maybe feeling guilty or feeling, shame, which a lot of times can happen, or even stepping up and leading my kids in conversation, leading my kids in just how they're doing. And I think of this week, my son got into a pretty bad bike accident, flew over the handlebars, had all this skinned up his arm, his whole body, and had road rash. But I can remember being pissed about, he was riding my bike because his bike was broken down. He was riding my bike. And so it kind of trashed my bike, but I can remember being upset about my bike and being like, hey, toughen up about what happened to him when I could say, listen. And I was able to step back from that a few, minutes later and really step back and say, listen, the bike's replaceable, you're not. So I want to make sure you're okay. But I didn't maybe voice that I was pissed about the bike, but but in my actions, I was kind of showing that. And so I got to step back and say, listen, the most important thing is your son's okay. Doesn't have any major injuries, although he has road rash, but the bike's replaceable. My son's not. And that's, how I can step into that leadership as a father. And even my wife this week's been sick and not feeling the best, and just being able to step into that more and be able to lead in that, and making sure my wife's okay and things like that. But these are minor things, but in a bigger picture of allowing this stuff to happen for months and months down the road, these are valuable lessons that we have to learn every single week. And these lessons are out there every single week for us to learn. We can leverage those going into the following week and be like, hey, here's how I'm going to show up as a leader inside of my business. Here's how, I'm going to show up at home as a leader in my home, and a leader in my marriage, a leader in my relationship with my kids. Because if I don't lead my people in my business, they're going to end up leading themselves, and they're going to feel like there's no leadership regardless. And so eventually they're going to be gone. Now they're going to look for someone else to lead them. Now, even in my marriage, if I don't lead my marriage, my wife is going to look for leadership somewhere else. My kids are going to look for leadership somewhere else. And that is not, what we're called to do, is let someone else lead our kids. Now, at times, I think, other people can influence them, but ultimately I want to be the one outside of God that has the greatest influence on them. And I want to make sure of that I'm showing up for that every single week. So that's kind of the leadership lesson of the week. Lead. Are you leading in your business? Are you leading in your home? Are you leading in your marriage? Are you leading in your parenting? Because if we don't, someone else will. And if they don't see the vision of your leadership, then people are going to perish, and people are going to perish, which means they may not be working for you, or they may not be looking for your leadership anymore. If my people perish, I can't grow my business. I can't grow my people. I can't grow myself. And so that's a huge lesson inside of 2022, and just being able to take that with me. And the other cool thing is I'm grateful for people on my team who are willing to have those conversations. And I could say that for a 21, 22-year-old to be able to have a conversation like that is pretty powerful. So, I'm super proud to have people on my team who are willing to have the tough conversation, and even, my wife at times, or even my kids, being able to have that conversation and redirect it and change it. And that's ultimately what this is all about, is like, hey, are we learning and are we leveraging it forward to take that life lesson and create, something better out of it? The other cool thing I want to really be able to do is turn these lessons over 2022 into a book that, I can give away to, my clients. I can give away to my kids, and really help them see, hey, these are valuable lessons that you can learn. And the point is we can never stop learning from, our kids, from, our wives, from, people on our team, from clients, all those things. But we just have to look for the lessons that we get. So guys, I want to thank you for joining me on this Saturday. If you're listening to this live, hashtag live. If you're listening to the replay, hashtag replay. If you're listening to the podcast replay, you guys have any questions and you want to be part of the habit-based lifestyle community, email me, jesse@habitbasedlifestyle.com. I would love to hear from you and just hear how your year's going, and if there's anything we can help you with. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse.